Alright guys, the lesson objectives for today are by the end of the day we're going to be able to change fractions into decimals, decimals into fractions, and then apply some of this to sports. So the first thing we're going to do is change fractions into decimals, and you have two choices. Please keep in mind that y'all should be taking notes while you watch these videos. I've noticed a lot of people not doing it. You should have your folder out, you should be taking notes. You can pause it and write down stuff. So your two choices to change a fraction into a decimal is to just divide or to find a denominator with a multiple of 10. A denominator with a multiple of 10 means that it's either 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, so on and so forth. Something that you know is your place value. And we have place values down here. We're going to talk about them in a sec. Okay, so let's start with option 1, divide. So we have the fraction 4/5. 4/5, we know, is a fraction, and we talked about during order of operations that the actual fraction bar here actually means to divide anyways. So all we have to do to change this fraction to a decimal is divide 4 by 5. Which one goes on the inside, 4 or 5? Well, the man on top goes in the house and the horse stays outside, or the first person in line goes inside the house while the second person waits. So it's 4 divided by 5. So now we think, well, 5 can't fit into 4, so what do we have to do? Since 4 is a whole number, we can add a decimal at the end and a 0 next to it. 4.0 is the same thing as 4 wholes. We'll ring the decimal straight up into the answer. 5 can't fit into 4, so I put a 0 there. 5 can fit into 40, though. We don't have to pay attention to the decimal because we already put it up there. 5 fits into 40 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. We have nothing left, so we are done. So our answer for 4/5 as a decimal is 8/10. The second option is to find a denominator with a multiple of 10. So the reason you have two options, though, is because you can't always find a denominator with a multiple of 10. But this one we can, and it's pretty easy. We have 4/5 equal to something. We need to find a common, an equivalent fraction that has a denominator of either 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, or anything that has a multiple of 10. The reason we do this is because if you look down here, you have your decimal. Remember, these are called the tenths spot, the hundredths, 10,000ths, that 10,000ths. That means that all we have to do, if we have a denominator of one of these, either 10, 100, 1,000, then all we have to do is put the numerator in that place. So let's try this. Well, we know that 5 times 2 is 10. That's a tenths place. In order to change the numerator, we have to multiply it by the same thing we do the denominator, because 2 over 2 is 1. So 4 times 2 is 8. So our equivalent fraction is 8/10. And if we have 8/10, that goes in this place value, so we just put our decimal and put the 8 in the tenths place value. So this is equal to 8/10. The exact same answer, two different ways to work it. Now you're asking, well, how do we change decimals to fractions? Well, we just use that same place value that we used over here. So we're going to take this, copy, and paste it over here so we can use it here too. So if I have a decimal, and we can even use the 8/10 example if we want, just for our first example, 8/10. Well, we know that this is the tenths place value, 8/10. So we just write this at 8/10. And we can simplify that. So you always have to simplify after you change your decimal to a fraction. We can divide both of these by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Let's do a harder example. Well, not harder, just different. We can have our decimal 125 thousandths. That's the way we read this. Remember, this is our tenths place, our hundredths, and our thousandths. So we read this as 125 thousandths. So now to change that to a fraction, all we have to do is put 125, that's what numbers we had, over 1,000, because that's what place value it ends in, 1,000. Can we leave our fraction like this? No, we want to simplify it. We want it in the smallest terms possible. So even though this is the fraction that's equivalent to this, we're not going to leave it like this. We have to simplify. What can we divide 125 and 1,000 by? Okay, I think that a lot of you probably would have said 5. You can actually divide it by something bigger than 5, but we'll start with 5 because I had some people tell me that last time. So 125 divided by 5 and 1,000 divided by 5. Well, 125 divided by 5, we can work that out on the side. Oops, sorry. 5 goes into 12 2 times. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So this would be 25. 1,000 divided by 5 would be 200. So you notice that we can again divide by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Oops, let me erase that. Okay. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 200 divided by 5 would be 40. So we can still simplify yet again. 5 divided by, I'm going to run out of room. 5 divided by 5 would be 1, and 40 divided by 5 would be 8. There, let's rewrite that one too. So we could have divided by actually 125 to start with, if you knew you could. So this would be 1/8. Okay, so let's look at our example. I'm going to cover up these answer choices while we work the problem actually. So this is our sporting example. We're talking about batting averages, so this is baseball. We're talking about Joe Garcia played on his baseball team. Over the season, he had 28 hits out of 112 times at bat. What is his batting average? So they're saying that a fraction is the parts out of the total. So he had 28 hits out of 112 total times he was at bat. So the question is, when we're changing a fraction to a decimal, we have two choices. Can we have a denominator that's a multiple of 100? Well, 112 is really close to 100. It's not going to be able to be multiplied to get something that's a factor of 10 easily. So we can't do that. So what we're going to have to do to compute the batting average or the decimal, we are going to have to divide. Which number goes inside the house? 28, because it's the number on top. 112 goes outside the house. So this is going to be a little tricky because you have a really big number in your divisor. Remember, the divisor is outside the house. 112 can't fit into 28, so we put a decimal. Add a 0. Bring our decimal straight up and pretend our decimal's not there for the rest of the time. 112 into 280. Well, 100 fits into 200 once, twice, so we're going to try out 2 times. 2 times. And 2 times 112 is actually, work it out, 224. So we subtract 280 minus 224. Borrow from the 8, turn it into 7. 10 minus 4 is 6. 7 minus 2 is 5. We're going fast because this isn't the point of the lesson, learning how to multiply. We add our 0, drop it down. 112 can fit into 560. Well, I know 100 times 5 is 500. 12 times 5 is 60, so 112 times 5 should be 560 as well. Let's double check. 112 times 5 is 10, 6, 560. So we're going to say minus 560. Oh, this pen's acting up. Sorry about that, guys. That leaves me with nothing. So my batting average would be 25 hundredths. The annotations. And we would pick C, 25 hundredths. Okay, so on the assignment that you're going to do, you're going to tell me setting up the fraction and dividing to find this decimal value. The student council sold 250 tickets out of the 875 tickets they had on a roll. What portions of the tickets did they sell? You're going to do this one to prove to me whether you understand. This is going to be 250 out of the total 875. And we got to find which decimal matches that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in class. Bye-bye.